And what a crowd we've got. We've got a fantastic crowd here already. Going to give everything just another minute or two here as people are still coming in, getting settled, and we'll get the ball rolling. But I do want to thank you so much for joining us. I am Trainer Matt of TTJ Tech Services, and we want to welcome you to VoiceOver In and Out iOS Edition. Yep, still some folks coming in. Still some folks coming in. That's fantastic. Give you another minute or so. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to VoiceOver In and Out iOS Edition. I am watching the crowd here as it continues to grow. As it continues to grow, praise God. That's very, very exciting. We're very thrilled. Very thrilled. It is so good to see so many familiar faces here, so many familiar names, I should say. It's great to see all of you back. And what's also really cool is seeing all the new folks, all the new names that I don't recognize, that I'm not sure I've ever seen before. It is so good to have all of you as well. So whether you are joining us again for another round of VO In and Out, or whether this is your very first time, it is absolutely great to see you. It is fantastic to have you here. We really do appreciate your support. We will be holding these things every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time from now through at least the week of Thanksgiving. Of course, we won't hold anything on, well, Thanksgiving to Thursday anyway, so it doesn't matter. But we'll give you time off there. But at least through the week of Thanksgiving, and we are going to look forward to seeing you in every one of these sessions. If you cannot make a session, the recording will be posted to YouTube within a day or two of the actual session. So stay tuned for that if you, for some reason, cannot make it to a particular VoiceOver In and Out session, or if you just want a general repeat, you want a review of everything, you want to listen back again, it is recorded for that purpose. So we will have those on YouTube. As I said, they'll be typically posted within a day or so of the particular session that you're looking for. We'll talk more about that in a little bit here. Got to go over all the housekeeping stuff. You know how that goes. Again, I am Matt Volbricht of TTJ Tech Services, and this is VoiceOver In and Out iOS Edition for 2022. If you are not intending to be in VoiceOver In and Out iOS Edition, please ring the call button overhead, and one of the flight attendants. Oh, sorry, wrong. Anyway, so we are thrilled to have you. As typically is the case, we do need to do some housekeeping procedures first and some discussion about all of that. And so for our veterans, for those folks who have been here for multiple VoiceOver In and Out sessions, we do apologize that you have to listen to the same stuff every time, but it is really important that we review it, and it is especially important for our newcomers, which we do have a lot of, and I'm absolutely thrilled and very grateful to God for that. So that's great. So we've got to just do these few housekeeping things. You know, it's like day one of school, right? We got to do it. But we will get some learning in today as well. That will come. It's just we got to get through the housekeeping first. So number one on the housekeeping list, of course, is that this is a Zoom meeting, not a webinar, but we are kind of running it like a webinar in the sense that we do have everybody on what we call a forced mute or a hard mute. I believe Zoom just says allow participants to unmute, and we say no, it's not an option right now. And the reason we do that is because we really do actually want to hear from you. We do want to hear what you have to say, and we will allow time for that. Believe me, we will. But if we start allowing everybody to just unmute and talk anytime they want to during the teaching, we'll never get any teaching done. We have a ton of content to share with you over the next 3 months or 2 months, whatever it is, month and a half. I don't know, whatever. I just kind of said a number and didn't really think it through before I said it. We have a ton of content to share with you during this time. And it is our hope to take you from the beginning fundamentals, if you've never used VoiceOver, all the way up to where you have the knowledge that you need to become a proficient expert in using your iOS device. And that is our goal. And in order to do that, we've just got a ton of content we've got to, pass along to you. And so we cannot have a lot of superfluous conversation and those kinds of things during the meetings. And so it is for that reason that we have indeed disabled the muting unmuting option, so you're not able to unmute. And we've also disabled the chat for that same reason, because when people start chatting with us, and almost always inevitably then with each other, it is very distracting to those who are listening. Yes, you can mute your speech. Yes, you can, all of these things, but it's just an extra step that we just would rather eliminate from the get-go. Now, we're not trying to be mercenary about it. We do understand, but as I said, we've got just a ton of content we've got to get through. So for that reason, you are hard muted and the chat is disabled. You will not see those options, and you try as you might, will not be able to unmute. However, there is a period of time, and typically every single session, we will have a period of time where you definitely will be allowed to ask questions. And the way we will most often do that is through the raised hand feature. We will ask you to raise your hand when we tell you to. Okay, so we'll give a period of time for folks to raise their hand. And if you do it before that, we won't respond to it because, again, we got to get through the content. But we'll give you a period of time where we say, okay, it's question time, what have you, usually in the last portion of each session. And then at that point, you put your hand up and we will call on you and give you permission to unmute. And you can talk at that point and we can interact with one another, and it'll just be a great experience. It'll be a lot of fun. And we love doing that, and on Wednesdays, typically we will try to do even more of that. Wednesday, a lot of times is kind of what we like to think about as our sort of our lab day, where we give you a chance to try things out, talk to us about how it's going for you, your experiences, and actually ask questions about it. So we'll have some of that Monday, more of it on Wednesday, but it just depends. Again, some Wednesdays we won't have a whole bunch of it. Some Wednesdays will be more like the Mondays, right? It just depends because, again, there's a lot of content to get through. So that's one of the things I wanted to share with you. The other thing, as we begin, you got a feel today for how these will typically be conducted. We will open the meeting typically 10 to 15 minutes prior to the start time of 2 p.m. Eastern, and we'll play some music for you just to enjoy while you're getting situated there. And then, right around 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll get the ball rolling and we will start the recording just as we did today. The other thing to be aware of is that we typically will do everything we can to try to start on time. Now, today, we waited a couple extra minutes because there were lots and lots of people still coming in. And that's fine. Again, that you can always listen back on YouTube if you don't, get something here, but typically right around 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to start teaching. And so there is going to be content that you may miss if you are, late, but again, you can always pick it back up on YouTube, which is the next thing I want to talk about in just a moment. Before we get to that, though, I do want to say another thing about our Zoom meetings, these teaching sessions. Today's teaching session is entirely live. In just a moment, I'm about to give unmute privileges to one of my co-hosts here, one of our team members, Rita. You may know Rita already. I'll introduce her shortly, but I saw her come in a few minutes ago. Glad to see you, Rita. As soon as I pause here, I'll definitely unmute you. So we are entirely live for day one, and probably for this Wednesday, day two as well. Beginning next week, We will still be live and we'll actually be here, but we are going to go to a hybrid model. For those of you who attended our spring iPad course this year, you'll recognize this format because it's exactly the same. For the rest of you, what it means is that we're definitely live, all right? But we're going to have a significant portion of the session pre-recorded, and we're going to let you hear it during our live session. I'm glad to see a second member of our team, third member, just come in, Trainer Cliff. We'll unmute you in just a moment there, Cliff. So what will happen is we'll come in, we'll welcome everybody live, and then we will have this session play for you. It's going to be a very nice, clean recording. Everything's, nice and tight, hopefully. I mean, I don't do a lot of editing. That's a separate discussion I don't want to take time up with, but I don't do a lot of editing. It's sort of a philosophy, but, it will be some sound effects. It'll be a lot of fun and a lot of learning for you there. And that will take up probably the first hour, maybe a little more of each session. And then we'll go to completely live where, again, we allow you to unmute by raising your hand, interact with us, ask your questions and so forth. And that's all entirely live. So every Monday and most Wednesdays will work that way. Some Wednesdays will be entirely live, but most will be pre-recorded as well. So that again is going to begin next week. Today is fully live. We're fully live this Wednesday, I do believe as well. So that gives you an idea of what to expect during the sessions. If you miss a session, as I said, I want to go over this more specifically now. We do have a TTJ YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is where you will find all of the sessions. Give us a day or so after each session to get them posted, all right? But they will be up there on YouTube. And for those of you who are familiar with YouTube, what we've also done is we'll create a playlist for each class. So this one will be VoiceOver In and Out iOS 2022. And that playlist will have all the videos in it of each session. And so you will be able to go back and pick the one you want to listen to for review, or if you missed a session, you can hear them all on YouTube, and it's great. Now, typically we don't include the interactive Q&A part in the session, and that is for a lot of reasons. The main one is because typically we take those clean recordings that I talked to you about, that we let you hear each session, and we just post those directly to YouTube. It's much more of just a seamless experience for you if that's what we post. Today and Wednesday, we will post what you're hearing right now. But normally when we have a clean recording, that's what will get posted to YouTube. So we don't include the interactive part. It also, for a lot of people listening back, if you're not really in on the discussion, kind of can become sort of, I don't know. It just becomes, it's different. Listening back to a bunch of people chattering and stuff is not the same as actually being part of that conversation yourself. So we don't typically post that part. All right. But the teaching will definitely be posted. The YouTube, probably the best way to find the videos is to just simply do a search and say TTJ VoiceOver In and Out 2022. Like if you go to YouTube, there's always a search box there, and you can search for it that way. There is a specific URL for our YouTube channel, and there will also be a specific URL for our new playlist for this class. We will share both of those with you in the newsletter, which I'm going to also talk about momentarily. But please understand that you can find it by searching if you go to YouTube. And as I said, probably the best phrase to use is like TTJ VoiceOver In and Out 2022. Okay, because that's going to give you the particular sessions that are relevant to this year. Once you do start playing a video from us, you can also, if you have a Google account, you can subscribe to our channel. You can leave a like on the video, and we really hope you will. Once you're subscribed to the channel, you'll get notifications when we post a new video. And that's a good thing. So definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel if you've not already done so. We always mention that in each YouTube video as well. For those folks who are sighted, most of the YouTube videos that we post are not actually videos. They are the audio with either a logo or some text or something like that. Every once in a while, there's a video if my kids are helping me, record one or something. But most often it's just audio. So we say video because that's what they are in file format and, to meet YouTube's requirements. But most of them are just audio. All right, so that's YouTube. The next thing I want to mention to you is about our TTJ newsletter. And this is very important. So what I would like for all of you to do is to be aware of our website. Our website is www.ttjtech.biz. So that is TTJ, like Tango, Juliet, followed by the word tech, TECH. .biz. That's Bravo Indigo Zulu. Okay. ttjtech.biz is our website. And on that website, as soon as you visit it, if you use heading navigation, for example, now we would love for you to check out the whole website. It's still under construction, by the way, too. So parts of it are not fully functional and it's not everything we want it to be yet, but it's getting there. It's pretty close. And praise God. And so you check out the whole website because we've got cool things, lots of free resources, information on our paid training and other services that we offer, and, a whole lot more. So be sure to check out the whole website. But specifically for this purpose, on the homepage of ttjtech.biz, if you use your heading navigation to go down to where it says, I think it says get in touch, and you start swiping right, you're going to find these little, it'll say by phone, and then there's a link, and that link actually would allow you to call us right then and there. And then there's by email, and there's a link to send us an email. But the next thing says, I think it says stay in the loop. Let me actually get my own website verbiage here. Let me tell you exactly what it says so I'm not misleading you. Okay, I'm opening up Safari here real fast, and we're just going to head on over to TTJ Tech. All right, so I don't mislead you. And what it says is, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to heading navigation. We have a cool video from Apple here about the iPad Air, but you keep using your heading navigation. It says about us, get in touch. And if you swipe right, by phone with a link, email and a link, and then get the latest TTJ Tech news. That's what it says. Get the latest TTJ Tech news. And then there is a button, and that button says subscribe. You simply choose that button, whatever device you're on, a double tap, a click, a VO space, whatever device you're using. You activate that button, subscribe. And what will happen is a little popover kind of thing, which we'll teach what those are about, but it will pop up at the bottom of the screen, and it'll say, enter your email address to subscribe. And so you simply enter your email address, and then there's a button to the right of that, which I don't know if it says submit or subscribe, continue. It's pretty obvious. And you do that, and then near the bottom of the screen, you'll see, you've subscribed successfully or whatever. And it's really that simple. And then once you've done that, you are always in the loop. You will get all of the latest TTJ news. So this includes things like promotions. We do a lot of promotions this time of year as we get into the holiday shopping season, Christmas, Black Friday, everything, and lots of extended support hours so you can get help on all the new gadgets you got for Christmas and everything. We have lots of deals on training and stuff like that. We also typically post tech tidbits and those sorts of things. And then relevant to this class, we're going to be posting things like our YouTube channel address. We're going to be posting documents that trainer Rita has written up that have to do with everything we teach. She is an excellent instructor and very thorough, and she writes detailed documents on everything that we discuss and everything that we're learning. And so you'll be able to have access to those. You'll be able to read all of these things and save them if you choose. But basically, I am getting a phone call. I'm even on Do Not Disturb. So let me see if I actually need to take that. Nope, that's just someone forgot that I had class today, I guess. But anyway, I'll call them back. So I appreciate your understanding there. So that's how the newsletter works. You can subscribe. Maybe you're already subscribed, but if you're not, you definitely want to do that so that you stay in the loop. Okay. And we have lots and lots of information to share with you that way. All right, so we've talked about the website, we've talked about all of this, and now I just want to mention a couple other things that I think are beneficial for all of you as students in this class. The first one I already mentioned earlier, which is the idea of, if it's at all possible, trying to be on time, because typically we are going to start, within a minute or two of the actual 2 p.m. hour. We'll do everything we can to do that, and so you don't miss the content, even though it is on YouTube as well. The second thing I've already discussed with you is that you are hard muted, all those things we talked about. The next thing I want to mention to you is that this VoiceOver In and Out class is designed both for folks who are users of VoiceOver and also for those who may be teaching VoiceOver. So, if you are sighted or what have you, you're an instructor, those kinds of things, this will fully benefit you as well. Now, we do typically encourage our students to try these things if they can. And so if it is at all possible, it's not a deal breaker, but just some advice. If it's at all possible to join from a secondary device, right? In other words, you've got an iPhone and an iPad, or an iPhone and a Mac, or an iPhone and a Windows PC. You join from the other device if possible, so that you can try things on your iPhone as we teach them. And that way also, then, if you have questions during the latter part of each session, when we unmute you, we can interact with you. We can actually hear what you are doing on your devices. Okay. So if at all possible, join from a second device. The other thing we want to encourage you to do is use your focus modes, like do not disturb, for example, because what just happened to me, that was an exception in the sense that that person was able to get through my do not disturb focus anyway, intentionally. But if that happened a lot, we'd be distracted by all the notifications. So we encourage you to turn on your do not disturb focus. If you are not familiar with how that works yet, don't worry, because that's something we'll be teaching in this class. We will talk more about what we'll be teaching in this class in just a few minutes when we talk about the sort of teaching strategies that we have planned for you in VoiceOver In and Out. One final thing before I go to our team. This is VoiceOver In and Out iOS edition. It is designed to teach VoiceOver from the ground up, specifically geared around the iPhone. We believe that is most people's point of entry into the Apple ecosystem. We believe it's the best point of entry, and we certainly know it's not the only device. And so what if you want to learn about the iPad? Well, every spring we offer what we call our flagship course, iPad for All Computing. It is a power-packed course that will teach you pretty much, hopefully, we hope, just about everything you need to know on the iPad. And we believe it'll be a blessing to you. So sign up for that when it's available. It's not available to sign up for now, but it will be. It'll take place in the spring, so closer to that time, usually March through May. And it is just a marathon course, but we love it. And we really hope you'll join us for that. We also have VoiceOver In and Out Mac OS edition. Now that will actually be starting this fall. We expect that to start the beginning of November, probably the first week of November. We will have exact details and a registration link as soon as Apple releases, or at least announces, a release date for Mac OS Ventura. We do not want to teach Mac OS without teaching to Ventura, because it is always our strategy to teach to the latest and greatest when we teach. So it will be on Mac OS Ventura, and we will not be starting the teaching until that happens, because we're so close to it at this point. It is expected. I think Apple even confirmed, but at the very least, it's, all the rumor mills and everything. It's expected that we will see Mac OS Ventura this month, here sometime in October. So, as I said, we expect VoiceOver In and Out Mac OS edition to start on the first week of November, and we will provide details about that as that approaches. All right, so before we go any further, I want to welcome our team once again. I'm going to go through here and unmute them. So give me a moment, please. What a good crowd we've got. This is fantastic. Praise God. Praise God. All right, let's see. All right, let's take a look here. Almost done, folks. Okay. All right, guys. Both of you should be able to unmute. And one other tip for our newcomers: if you are getting a lot of feedback, especially as they start talking, and it switches what's on the screen, and it says now displaying Rita's avatar, now displaying Cliff's avatar, what have you. Yeah, there's a couple of options you have. You can use whatever your screen reader's command is to silence or mute your speech. With VoiceOver on iOS, that is actually on Mac OS as well. If you have a trackpad, that is a 3-finger double tap that will mute and unmute speech. You just have to remember to unmute again your speech later so you actually can hear VoiceOver. But that's one way. The other way is just to go, away from the app. But we don't recommend doing that, especially on iOS, because when we start doing these pre-recorded teaching sessions next week, if you and I don't know if it's by design or by a bug. I kind of think it's a design feature, but I don't know for sure. If you use the app switcher or what have you and navigate away from Zoom, you literally will not hear the teaching sessions. You literally will not hear anything. It is as if we are not even there. And so you need to stay in the app. So we don't encourage, it's a little bit different on Mac and PC, but just for, force of habit, we don't encourage you to leave the app. We'd rather you do it the other way. And that is to, mute your speech for now. So let's welcome our team. We'll tell you a little about ourselves, let them go first and tell you about kind of how we got started as a team and why we do what we do. I don't know if Trainer Cliff is able to speak. Glad to have Cliff here, but I know he's also working at the same time. So he may or may not be able to talk right now. Cliff, let us know if you can talk. And if so, we'll give you a chance to have the floor and introduce yourself.
And Matt, Sarah just joined. If you want to unmute her.
Awesome. I want to mute her too. Sarah, sorry about that. I need to get to it as well. Since I'm not hearing Cliff, we'll go Rita and then Sarah. And so, Cliff, if you're able to talk here in a few minutes, then you certainly can as well. Sarah, I apologize. I'll get to you in 1 second here. And there we go. Here's Trainer Sarah. All right.
Yay.
Hi.
Hey, Sarah.
The second that Matt said he was going to unmute us all, that's the exact moment when I inadvertently canceled Zoom.
Of course.
Of course.
That's always how it,
Sorry about that.
Oh, well,
I always say, is the issue the person in front of the glass or the software under the glass? Is that the problem?
Where I say garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I had a friend who say a loose nut behind the wheel, But,
yes, exactly. So Matt, you want me to?
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, great. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names, but there's some unfamiliar names too in the list. And so I've been part of the TTJ team for several years. We do a lot of volunteer work with Matt to get this information out about how to use VoiceOver on your Apple iOS devices. And I do documentation, as Matt was talking about. I try to write up steps so that if you want some step-by-step directions on how to take an action on something, I try to put that in a document, simple text form, and I will be posting those. We're posting those as attachments in the TTJ newsletter, correct? So that if people don't want those documents, they don't have to open them.
Yeah, that's kind of how. I mean, again, there's some things that'll benefit everybody, and you can be the judge of that. But yeah, definitely either written out right in the email or attached as a document that you can just click and download, and that also gives you the ability to more easily save that, file it away, because a lot of times we get asked, how can I save these documents? So yes.
Great. So as most people here, will have an email account because that's how you signed up for these courses. And so you'll see from the TTJ Tech newsletter, you'll see something like documents for VoiceOver lesson number 1, October 3rd, 2022. Here's how to, look at your home screen or whatever Matt talks about that day. So I try to make it relevant to what Matt is discussing. So the idea here is that you can get the benefit from this by going to YouTube, re-listening to the lesson, and then there's the documents that you can keep that support the lesson. And so I've been around for a long time. I've worked in rehabilitation for many, many years. So I do a lot of volunteering now, and that's my thing. I love VoiceOver and using devices. It forces me to keep current. Also, when I kind of do this documentation to support the excellent teaching that Matt is providing for this group. So that's about me. Sarah?
I guess it's my turn. I started with computers decades ago, as in like in the 80s. And it's totally different than what it is now. And it's so streamlined now, but I completely understand that even though it's simplicity itself, it can be completely confusing when you are not used to it, whether you're new to blindness, going blind, always been blind, but not used Apple products. It's difficult in the very beginning to figure it out until your fingers learn where they're going and your brain can sort of deactivate and not be in that confused level. So I just wanted to say that, it took me a while to enter the whole sphere. And once you're in it, it becomes second nature. And before that happens, Matt is super good at slowing things down, answering questions. Rita is fabulous as well. I'm not going to speak for me because those two are amazing. Just that it won't be that hyperspeak that you get from, when you call for tech support from some companies and they give you the hyperspeak and make you feel like you're stupid. That does not come from TTJ. And actually, when you call Apple, especially Apple accessibility, it does not come from there either. So you do not have to feel funny about, slowly entering the world. And if you have already entered the world and you know a whole bunch, you're going to learn something anyway. Like some tidbit will come up out of nowhere and you'll be like, oh, I didn't know that one. That will make my life easier. So wherever you're at, this is just a support group that is supportive. And I vouch for each one of these wonderful teachers. And I think I'll end there.
Sarah's one of the well, Sarah is the newest member of our team actually to come on board, and she doesn't want to, she wants to be modest and doesn't want to speak about herself, but I will speak about her um, because Sarah is an outstanding trainer as well. Her level of compassion combined with her level of skill just make her an awesome fit. And people don't realize how high my standards are for having people onto the team. I'm not trying to say that to sound like I'm being, whatever it might sound like. Okay, I'm just pointing out to you because I'm the kind of person who believes that the people that do tech support should actually be the engineers who wrote the stuff. Because I think when you call tech support, you need someone who literally cannot be stumped, or at least cannot reasonably be stumped. I know I don't know everything. All right, I'll be the first to admit I've made mistakes, and I'm sure there'll be more. But I like to believe that I have, enough knowledge to be able to help most people out of most situations. And if not, to at least be able to point them in the right direction to where to find it. That's a God-given thing. We'll talk more about that. But I really believe that God has put this team together, and it's a fantastic team. And we truly are thrilled. And I'm truly thrilled to be part of this team. There are two other people on the team who are not going to get to talk today. Cliff is one of them. He is here. But Cliff is also working a second job, and it's got him occupied at the moment. He said possibly Wednesday. We'll just have to wait and see. If he doesn't get to talk Wednesday, he will submit a recording to introduce himself. I won't tell you all the details about that. I'll wait for him to be able to interact. It's a pretty funny story, but Cliff and I go way back. He is a brother in Christ and another another trainer. And I always, we have the kind of relationship where I always tell people Cliff is like the big brother I never had and never wanted, but I'm kidding, of course. So we're glad to have him as well. And then our other team, member is trainer Lynn, and Lynn is also in training for some job related things. She's already got a job and has long before she came on board this team. But we'll tell you all about that when she has a chance to talk as well. So we're glad to have her and Cliff, as well as, of course, Sarah and Rita. And so that makes up your TTJ team. I am trainer Matt. I started using. Well, I've been blind since the age of 3. Been using technology most of my life. As a kid going into high school, I began working with my mom doing tech support for people. She was a technology coordinator at a local school district. And in a fairly small community, your name gets out there pretty quick. And so people would call her and say, I need help with my Windows machine. It's got a virus, or it isn't doing this, or it isn't doing that, And I started assisting her, and we kind of had a team where I would do a lot. We sort of became known for doing hard drive reformats because we didn't believe all the other patchwork solutions really worked well for Windows. Windows, you kind of had to take everything back down to the foundation and start over when you got, enough spyware, enough viruses, and, all these things. And so that was our first business. Actually, I marketed as CompuClean. And that was the idea that we'd clean up your computer completely, And so I did a lot of the technical stuff, and formatting the hard drive and installing Windows and device drivers and all those crazy things you have to do with Windows. And my mom then was sort of the person who, okay, now that's done, I'm going to teach you how to use, Microsoft Word. I'm going to teach you how to create, a spreadsheet, those kinds of things. And so we really had a team there. And then after I got out of college, make a long story short, in 2009, I became introduced to the world of Apple products, first with a Mac, and then with the iPhone 3GS, the very first iPhone to have VoiceOver. It completely changed my life. I believe it is a gift from God. It completely revolutionizes the way that we do things. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I never looked back. I never used I've had to for other people occasionally, but I don't really do it anymore. I can say that I really don't use Windows at all. Don't have a Windows computer. My son has one for gaming. But I immediately sort of abandoned that platform and went entirely Apple. Began my current business in 2015, and got a couple of Apple certifications over the next few years, with more on the way, praise God. But this enables me to have access to Apple's way of thinking. in a sense. It enables me to have access to resources and documentation that Apple provides and teaching methods that Apple provides. And so absolutely thrilled and honored for that. And then, besides that, as I said, we do offer, some other things in as well. And I'll talk about that. Other than that, I am married with two really awesome kids. My son is 15. He'll be 16 in March. My daughter is 10. And sometimes they'll join us here as well for these sessions. To give you an idea, I have about we usually tell the Apple products I have about every Apple, current product that Apple makes. I mean, not every version of it. I don't have, Mac Studio or anything like that, but I do have a Mac and certainly multiple iPads and the iPhone and Apple TV, HomePods, the watch, all these things. So we're really, really thrilled. And most of us on the team are in that same position. We, have all these Apple devices. We either have certifications or, equivalent experience. And we're thrilled to be able to help you out here in this process. To talk about our teaching philosophy and what you can expect in this class. All right. This class was born as our second major class that we began. So in 2018, and I talk more extensively about this in the iPad course because it's relevant to the iPad. But in 2018, we began to realize that there were a lot of people who never had the training, and they were sort of fumbling around and never really knew just the possibilities, the capabilities, the potential of their iOS devices. We truly believe, and I really do mean it when I say that it is something that I was led by God to do, to offer these classes and to offer them to you completely free. He wanted me to do that free of charge. And we're thrilled to do that. We will never charge for these classes. Now, we charge for other things. Okay. I do have paid services, and I'm not afraid to advertise that to you because it may be helpful to you. Not trying to be tacky about it, but it may be useful to you to get paid training one-on-one or some of our Premier Protection. So that's all fine. And that's great. We charge for a lot of different things, but we will never charge for these classes. Okay. Because that's how God led me to do it and led us to do it. And so we want to offer these to you because He wants us to, and in the earthly sense, because we're so passionate about it, because we really believe it does change lives. Apple products completely revolutionize the way we work, play, communicate, design, express ourselves, the way we create, all these different things. And they are empowering and life-changing. I'm sure that if I looked at the list, I would probably see, as I've seen before, people from not only the United States, but multiple countries. And I would probably see huge diversity in the age of our participants. And I would see huge diversity in the walks of life, where you came from, how you got here, what you want to do in the future. And that is indicative of the fact that these products mean so much to so many different people. And what we try to do is to bridge that gap where you haven't had this training and you don't realize what the capabilities are. And maybe people are afraid of their devices and afraid of how to use them and not aware of what all can be done with them. And so what we want to do is we want to make it as easy as it possibly can be, right? We recognize everybody's different. We recognize that people have different skill levels. And as Sarah said, for some people, it can truly be overwhelming. We want to do everything we can to take that frustration out of the mix for you, to show you that it's possible and to help you to learn to do it. We cannot pretend that everything is going to be covered in this course. That idea is true insanity, right? There's no way that can happen. First of all, as I said, we don't know everything. Okay, I'll be the first to admit that. As I said before, I make plenty of mistakes. I'm sure I'll make some in this class too. And I'm sure Trainer Cliff will be very quick to point it out when I do. But I won't even tell you how many he see. He can't defend himself right now. I'm going to get a message in the chat in about 2 minutes, so you wait. But we all we don't know it all. Secondly, there's not time to teach everything, right? Even everything we do know, we can't teach all in this one course. That is not practical. It is not reasonable. Instead, what we want to do is we want to build a foundation. In a minute, I'm going to talk to you about something called predictable patterns. And basically what our goal is to do is to teach the fundamentals. Now, if you ever watch the Super Bowl, I can pick that. I'm not really a sports fan. I like the Super Bowl because it's a chance to get together with family and friends and have lots of food and all that. Although if I find lots of other reasons to do that too, but the Super Bowl is just another one, you know. I can usually tell you the teams that are playing, and that's about the extent of it. But one thing I know is that when you're watching something like the World Series or the Super Bowl or any of these things, what is it that you are watching? You are watching masters of the fundamentals. Okay. That is, you're watching the manifestation of people who are so good at the basics that everything else begins to fall into place. Yes, they still make mistakes, but they typically can recover from them pretty quickly, or at the very least, they can analyze what they did wrong after the fact. Masters of the fundamentals, people that know so well the basics. And in this class, it's no different. We want you to learn the fundamentals. We want you to learn the foundations. Now, we'll do some building upon that here in this class, okay? We will go further. We will teach you some apps. We'll do those kinds of things. But really and truly, you can explore for yourself once you've learned the fundamentals. And that is because Apple products and the interface of the iOS platform very much conforms to predictable patterns. I think back to the days I was using Windows screen readers, and I think about how I had to learn literally hundreds of different commands. And there were Windows commands, and there were JAWS commands, and there were, all of these different things. And then, there were different commands for each app and stuff like that. With Apple products, you really don't have that. If you use the keyboard, you have a little bit of that. There are some apps that do have specific commands to give you quicker access to things that would otherwise take 2 or 3 steps, to do them in one step. But you don't really need them. It's kind of optional. And you'll see that more when we get into the Mac, but we are going to cover keyboards a little bit in this class too. But what it is if you learn the basic fundamental commands, or in this class, if you learn the basic fundamental gestures, number one, you'll be able to navigate most places. And then secondly, you learn the predictable patterns. And so what that means is that there are only so many different ways that an app can typically be set up. Now, of course, there are some weird exceptions. You get a really, really graphic game that may not even work with VoiceOver because it's all visual, those kinds of things. Sure, they may have different, UI, different user interface, but basically for the most part, there are only so many ways that an app can be laid out on the screen. And if you learn the predictable patterns, if you learn how to navigate an app, for example, that has tabs across the bottom of the screen, or an app that is set up with a hamburger menu. What's a hamburger? Why are you learning about food? What does that even mean? All right. If you learn the basics of those things, how to navigate this, you can truly navigate any app or website that you come across. And it doesn't require us to teach you step by step how to use every single app. Okay. Instead, you'll be able to learn how to use it yourself by simply exploring. This is something that I do believe is a God-given gift that he has given me whenever I sit down in front of a device. To me, it's like 1 + 1 is 2. I am not boasting. If I boast, it is in Christ. It is not me. Okay, but I do believe that's a God-given gift because that does happen. I sit down and it just makes sense. And I don't even remember the steps. A lot of people think I have all the steps memorized. I don't. So I have to see it for myself. It frustrates my wife because she'll say, "How do I do this?" I said, "Just give me your phone. I'll do it." Well, tell me how to do it. I don't know. I have to look. I don't know. I've got to see it. But when I see it, it just makes sense. Okay. So that's a God-given thing. But we can learn. We can be trained how to explore, how to look at these things so that eventually they do make that much sense to you, so that you can eventually get there And you do that by exploring. If I were to sit down and just teach you every single app, that would not be as good, because you'd know how to use that app on that particular day. But what are you going to do 3 weeks later? You haven't used the app in 3 weeks and you don't remember every single step. Are you really going to want to sit down and pull out your notes, open the document, find the file? Is that really the way you want to do it? Or do you want the skill to be able to figure it out for yourself? And to me, the obvious answer should be the second one. Nothing wrong with keeping notes too. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. All right. You keep your notes if you want to do it. But I'm just saying to you that the ability to explore the apps, because you know the patterns, because you know the fundamentals, is going to get you so much further. You can find new apps in the App Store. You can go to new websites you've never been to before. You can fill out forms. You can do all these things, and it's just going to make sense. Now, as I said, we do teach some of that too. We are going to teach some apps in great depth because we believe they're really important. But what I also need you to understand, that brings me to my next point. It is impossible to teach both VoiceOver and detailed iOS in one class. It's impossible because you have to kind of learn one to learn the other in the first place. And it's not easy to meld those two things together. But what we try to do is we try to give you a little bit of both. So we spend most of our time focusing on the patterns, the fundamentals. And even when we start to explore an app in depth, it's always going to keep coming back to that. It's going to keep going back to those predictable patterns, those fundamental concepts. But then, we will sprinkle that with details, for example, about the Messages app. How can I send a sticker or record an audio message? How can I do that? And we will definitely teach that as well. So that's kind of an overview of what to expect. As I said, got, several pretty much up through Thanksgiving allotted for you. I think on the calendar, it actually goes to like December the 6th or 7th or something. We may not need all of those sessions. I always put extra on the calendar just in case we get behind or something like that. But definitely the week of Thanksgiving anyway. And so we're going to try to cover all these VoiceOver concepts. We're going to try to cover, even the more detailed, the apps and then, we'll go from there. Today's topic is really about just getting started. And so some of you, you know all of this stuff. You've been here before. You've been using these devices for years, but you're going to get your time too, because we're going to get more advanced as we go. But we really want to dedicate today to the folks who are brand new to this, maybe who have never touched an iPhone in their lives. And what we want to do is to tell you how to get started. And of course, Rita and Sarah are standing by. Feel free to jump in anytime, ladies, as we do this. Okay, but we want to talk about the most basic navigational concepts for VoiceOver, and we want to talk about what it's like to get a new phone and set that up. Okay, and that's kind of where we're going to leave it for today, and then go on Wednesday even further. But let me start out with some of these real basic things. Really, just as you know, most of you know, the iPhone and all Apple devices come with a host of accessibility features. And VoiceOver is not the only one. It's the one we're going to focus on in this class, but there are accessibility features that include magnification, hearing features. There are dexterity options and all kinds of accessibility features baked right into iOS and really all the Apple platforms. And so there's not a single Apple device that you couldn't use because every one of them has these accessibility features. VoiceOver, of course, is the screen reader. So it's going to read what's on the screen, and it's going to allow you to interact with elements by hearing what you're interacting with. And VoiceOver is unique in that it is a gesture-based screen reader. To be fair, it's not the only gesture-based screen reader anymore, but I do believe it was the first. And there has to be a way, when you're using gestures on a touch screen and you can't see, there has to be a way to bring that into something practical, right? I mean, when I first read that Apple was bringing VoiceOver to the iPhone back in 2009, I was already an Apple fan. I already loved Apple products. I was using my MacBook full time by that point in time. It was Mac OS, what they called OS 10 Leopard, and I was loving it. Okay, but I didn't know a lot about Apple as a company. I didn't know a lot about their philosophies, right? And I read that VoiceOver was coming to a touchscreen device, the iPhone. I was still using my LG Chocolate, I think it was called, that like slider phone that they had, which didn't really talk much per se anyway. And then I think I got a Nokia Intrigue or something. I'm using these devices and reading that this iPhone that, yeah, I've always thought was awesome, is now going to be able to talk. And I, practically laughed because I imagined myself wandering aimlessly around a touchscreen, accidentally tapping things and activating them when I didn't mean to, and all this. I didn't understand that Apple had already figured out a way in traditional Apple fashion to take things to the next level and to do it by thinking just about everything through. And they came up with a way that we can interact with the screen without all that negative stuff happening, even if we can't see it. It is built upon what is known as the VoiceOver cursor. Now, as you can see, you can actually see the VoiceOver cursor when the VoiceOver screen reader is turned on. It appears as a rectangle that surrounds whatever item is highlighted on the screen. And so what we are doing when we use VoiceOver is we're moving that VoiceOver cursor around the screen. And that highlights every element so we could hear what it is. And then there's another way that we activate that element if we want to take action on it, if we want to activate, by opening, and we want to open an app, or we want to type a character on the keyboard. And so, of course, we'll talk about that in just a second. But basically, just keep that in mind. The VoiceOver cursor is what is moving around the screen for you, and it's allowing VoiceOver to talk or to, braille output or whatever. And so that's the way that works. And if you cannot see, you're not seeing the VO cursor, VoiceOver cursor, but it is there. Now, first of all, when I want to we're going to talk about setting up a new device in a moment. And when we do that, we'll talk about that there are several different ways to turn VoiceOver on. And I do want to cover those right now before we talk about how to use VoiceOver. I actually want to cover how to turn it on in case you don't even have it on. Now, for most people, if you've already got an iPhone that's set up and you didn't do it, somebody else set it up for you. If you find that VoiceOver is not on, probably the easiest way to turn it on is with Siri. Siri is the digital voice assistant that every Apple product has, and it's very powerful, and it will turn VoiceOver on and off for you. If you don't know how to activate Siri yet, we're going to talk about that in a moment as well. But just know right now that that's probably the easiest way for somebody who doesn't have VoiceOver turned on to do it. Now, there are also other ways. There's a triple click shortcut, but what do you triple click? Well, I'm going to teach you that. All right, so we're going to learn that in just a second. And it can even be done with sight by going to settings. And if somebody is there with you that has sighted assistance, or you have sight, or you have sighted assistance, rather you can tap on settings, and then you can tap on accessibility and VoiceOver, and you can just slide the little toggle switch to the on position on the screen, and it's going to give you a message that VoiceOver changes the gestures, and so you have to say okay to that. And then from that point in time, we know VoiceOver is on. And the last way is we can actually do it from our computer if we're connected to a computer. Most of us don't even do that with our iPhones anymore because, praise God, we don't need to. They are PC-free devices, and they do just about everything we need them to do, and we never need to connect to the computer. But if we are not familiar with VoiceOver and we don't know how to do this, it is possible we might have computer skills. So we can connect this iPhone to a computer, go into iTunes if we're using Windows, or just go into the Finder on a Mac and find the iPhone icon. And we can go under accessibility on the computer, and we can turn VoiceOver on that way from the computer as well. So there's lots of ways to turn on VoiceOver. Now what I'd like to do is describe to you what the overall layout of the iPhone is, so that if you need to turn on VoiceOver, you know how to do it. If you need to triple click or activate Siri or whatever, you know where the buttons are to do that. Now, the vast majority of your iPhone, of course, is the glass, as we like to call it, right? The touch screen. This is a capacitive touch interface, multi-touch. So what do those things mean? $1 million terms, right? Got to learn the language. Okay. If you're taking notes, capacitive touch is the impulses that come from the electronics. Your fingers will actually send like an impulse to this screen. It does mean that a very, very light touch will do. You don't need to be heavy-handed and tap really hard on your screen. Rita always talks about this because she has seen so many times where people are making mistakes. They're touching the wrong thing. It's doing the wrong thing, and they're touching way too hard, as if they got to, really, really shout at their device to make very, very light touch. Just tap, little taps. You don't need to make it do anything more than that. And so that's your capacitive touch. And then multi-touch means that we actually have gestures that we can use multiple fingers for. And so it does make a difference if we're touching with 1 finger, 2, 3, 4 fingers. We're going to learn those different gestures. But right now, just know that when we want to have a 1 finger tap, it needs to really be 1 finger. If you get another finger in the way, it's going to do something different. All right. So that's multi-touch. Typically in this class, especially, we will delineate, we will specify this is a 1 finger tap or a 1 finger double tap or single finger double. We'll use those phrases so that you know. But please be advised that if we forget, or if we don't say that and I just say tap on that icon, if you don't hear me specify otherwise, it automatically means 1 finger, unless I say 2 finger double tap or 3 finger triple tap or whatever. If I only say double tap, that means 1 finger. If I say tap on the icon, means 1 finger. If I say swipe to the right, that means 1 finger, because I didn't say 2 finger swipe. All right, so just get used to that. We will try to specify anyway, but just remember that the general terms without a finger designation do indicate 1 finger. All right, so let's take a look at these devices, what they look like. I happen to have here my iPhone 14 Pro in gold. Praise God, it's an awesome device. I love this new iPhone. Yours may be different, but there's a lot of characteristics that are very similar. For starters, the way we hold the device. And so how do we know what's the top and the bottom? Well, the easiest way to know is when we talk about the bottom edge of the device. You're going to feel on the bottom edge what feel like speaker grills with a little hole separating the 2 speaker grills in between the 2. And that is your lightning connector, that little hole in between. That's the thing that actually allows you to plug in your phone and charge it. So if that is on the bottom of the device, you know you're holding it properly. Also, when you're holding it properly, there's a button, a single button on the right-hand side on the edge of the phone on the right. And then there are 2 buttons on the opposite side. Those 2 buttons are your volume down and then your volume up. And you have up above that, a little switch. That is the ring/silent switch. It will mute the sounds from your phone, basically. And so you can, simply, it's a hardware switch to mute and unmute the ringer and alert sounds and so forth from your phone. The button on the opposite side of the phone, on the right-hand edge, there's just 1 button. We typically refer to it as the side button. And it has a lot of different functions, depending on which model of iPhone you have. At the very least, it is your power and sort of sleep/wake button that will put the phone to sleep, that will wake it up, that will do all of these different kinds of things And you can press and hold it to turn on the device if it's completely powered off, and those kinds of things. But if you're using an iPhone 10 or newer, that button also has a lot of other functionality. For one thing, it is the button that you use to activate Siri. We said, how do you activate Siri with a button? If you have it set up, you can also say the wake words, but that's later, right? So if you just want to activate Siri with a button, it's that side button. You press and hold it, and you talk to Siri. And also, if you want to do the triple click accessibility shortcut, which has to be set up, it's not set up by default, but it is the triple click gesture, and it is 3 clicks of that side button. Okay, that is how we activate our accessibility shortcut. It could be turning on VoiceOver. There are other things you can set it to do also, but it's 3 times on that side button. So that's how you're going to do it on most of the modern iPhones. And that button even has other uses besides that. We haven't even gotten into some of the other things that it does, but that's okay. We'll get there later. But that's your side button, because most iPhones now do not have a home button. There are a few of the leftovers that are older that might, and there's one current model that does, which is the SE. All the rest of them do not have a home button, and so you need that side button to do those different things that I mentioned. Now, if you do have a home button, then you can press and hold that to activate Siri, and you can press that 3 times quickly to turn on VoiceOver. But most of your modern iOS devices do not have that home button. So we will try to cover both methods here. Anytime we talk about something, we'll try to make sure we, discuss what that is like with the home button versus without. But I do want you to know that most of the modern iOS devices don't have one. And so it's that side button that we need to use. Now, when we get a new iPhone, it's possible that we might go to an Apple store to set it, to have it set up for us. But even an Apple store, they're going to encourage you to actually do the things rather than them like doing a whole bunch with your device. They want you to learn how to do it. That's their philosophy. That's their strategy. And it also may be that you didn't go to an Apple store. Maybe you got the phone directly sent to you, shipped to you. And here's the cool part. It's entirely possible to set it up yourself without any sighted help, without any of these things. You can turn on the phone immediately by pressing and holding that side button. You basically want to hold it for about 5 to 6 seconds nowadays. And if you can see, you'll see an Apple logo. Later on, there is a feature on the very newest iPhones that allows you to hear a little chime when the Apple logo appears. But that's only on the 14 series. So basically you just, hold it about 4, 5, 6 seconds, and then just give it a minute. Just, wait about, I don't know, close to a minute, maybe even 30 to 45 seconds. And now you can actually triple click that side button 3 times. What happens is, out of the box, that accessibility shortcut will turn on VoiceOver during setup so that you can set it up without any sighted assistance. Okay. Now, once you do that, once you turn it on that way, it actually automatically sets the accessibility shortcut to VoiceOver, which means that from then on, anytime you triple click that side button, it turns VoiceOver on or off. And that's very convenient. If you miss that opportunity, like I say, if somebody else sets that up for you and they didn't turn on VoiceOver during setup with the triple click, then you are going to have to go into the settings and enable VoiceOver for the accessibility shortcut. But if you do it during setup, it automatically makes that setting change for you. And so it's very, very convenient. Now, we won't get into the details today of how to set up your device and how to set up iCloud. We are going to talk about that on Wednesday about Apple IDs and iCloud, but we won't get into all the details of how to set everything up today. If you want to see a setup, an example of a device set up with VoiceOver, we do have a video of that up on YouTube. I'm going to have to look what it's called exactly, but obvious terms should be in the name. I demonstrated setting up an iPad Air with VoiceOver and restoring from an iCloud backup. And I let you hear sort of how easy that really is. And so it would be great if you want to listen to that. But the one part of the setup process that we will talk about in a little bit is Face ID. And again, on Wednesday, we're going to get into unlocking your phone and all your swipe, gestures to all these things, right? And we'll talk about Face ID on Wednesday too. What I want to do for today is just talk about the most basic gestures for VoiceOver. If you already know how to unlock your phone, or at least you can get into your phone somehow and you have VoiceOver ready, we want to talk about the basic gestures that everybody needs to know. And these are one finger swipes and taps. That's all we're going to do today. Wednesday, we'll get into a lot more. Wednesday, we'll get into the magic tap, the rotor, all those kinds of things. But today, just the basic gestures, and they are swipes and taps. One finger, left and right. We're not even going to do up and down today. We're just going to swipe to the left. We're going to swipe to the right. When we do that, it moves the VoiceOver cursor around the screen from item to item. The home screen, which we'll also talk about on Wednesday, is set up in it has multiple components to it. We're not even going to get into those today. We're going to get into those Wednesday. But there's, apps on the home screen. There's the dock, all these different things we'll learn about on Wednesday. And you navigate through them with your swipe gestures. So I'm going to unlock my iPhone here. I'm going to show you that. For example, I'm on my home screen right now. I'm on the icon that says App Store. It's not the first one on there, but I just tapped randomly. Anywhere I touch on the screen, it moves the VoiceOver cursor to that item. So I can lift my finger and randomly touch with one finger. A touch, again, is just a quick tap and release.
Clock, 3:15 p.m. Double tap to open.
It said clock.
App Store. Double tap to news.
See, I'm just touching random places on the screen, and VoiceOver announces what I've touched. You also heard it say double tap to open. And that is a VoiceOver hint. Those are really, really useful and important. We'll get into those more on Wednesday and other days when we talk about settings. But just know that's a hint. It tells you double tap to open. And so if I come across an icon and I want to open the app that I found, like, for example, Messages.
Dock, Messages, 4 unread messages. Double tap to open.
You heard a little badge on there. That's called a badge count. It tells me there's 4 unread messages. If you can see, you see a little, number 4 there. And basically, that means I've got 4 unread messages. If I want to open this app, I just double tap. That's one finger double tap. And a double tap is 2 really quick, just tap, tap, right? And so once you've touched an item, if you want to open it, you double tap. If you want to move to a different item, you can either touch another place on the screen or you can swipe. I can swipe to the left with one finger.
Safari, phone, 20 new items, page 1 of 7, settings.
I can swipe to the right.
Page, dock, Safari, messages, 4 unread messages. Double tap to open.
So when we talk, oh, go ahead, Rita. I'm sorry.
No, I was waiting for a point to right where you are here. These gestures that Matt is showing you, the very first gesture of touching and swiping, some people call it flicking. Matt said this already, but I want to emphasize it's a very light, feather light gesture. VoiceOver works not by pressure, not by heat. It's called capacitive touch. And so when you touch, there's an electrical current that drops and moves the VoiceOver cursor to wherever you touched. And so if you flick left, it'll move it up the screen. If you flick to the right, it'll move it down the screen. And knowing where you are is very helpful on these devices. And when you're talking about this these gestures, these voiceover gestures. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 finger gestures, and for the basic. And to learn about these gestures, there's a really cool thing that you can do. It's a 4-finger double tap, which will open up voiceover practice. And then you could practice to your heart's content without making things happen on your phone to, the 1-finger gesture, the 2-finger gesture, the 3-finger gesture. If you master these gestures, you can do anything. So people, I think, don't understand when they're starting out that these gestures are critical, that the screen has to recognize, is that a 1-finger or a 2-finger? So if your fingers are too close together, it might see it as only as 1 finger. If your thumb is holding the phone and you touch, it might see it as a 2-finger gesture. You've got to be extremely precise about these gestures and very feather light touch. And I'm bringing this up, Matt, because I need to go in a couple of minutes. This 4-finger double tap for the voiceover practice, and to get out of practice.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. To get out of practice mode, you do another 4-finger double tap, and it's really handy when you're learning voiceover to put the phone down in front of you. Don't hold it, okay? If at all possible, put it down on the table in front of you and take your fingers and put them on the table so you can feel your fingers. You can feel the 1 finger, the 2, 3, 4. Feel those 4 fingers together, okay? Bring the 4 fingers over, quickly double tap on the screen lightly, and it'll say voiceover practice. And then you can do anything with these gestures. 1 finger swipe up, 1 finger swipe down. It'll tell you, it'll give you all the feedback. And then you do a 4-finger double tap and it'll exit voiceover practice. So that's really important. And one more thing to bring up about speech synthesis. VoiceOver is a layer of software that has been added to the phone. So it looks just like a fully sighted individual using their phone without VoiceOver. Your phone looks exactly the same. It's just when you put VoiceOver on your phone is going to behave differently than a sighted person would interact. A sighted person would see the phone emblem icon and they would touch it and the phone app would open. When a person using VoiceOver sees the phone, it says phone for the icon. And we need to talk about icons too, maybe on Wednesday, but you double tap because you're running VoiceOver. So there's another layer of operation going on this phone. So with VoiceOver's answer is to double tap instead of a 1-finger tap, like a person who's not running VoiceOver. And speech synthesis is VoiceOver. When something talks back to you, that's called speech synthesis. When you're hearing something talk to you, it's speech synthesis. When you talk to your device, such as through Siri, or you dictate, it's called speech recognition. And that's completely different. So a lot of people confuse Siri with VoiceOver, okay? Siri is one voice synthesis. Oops, hang on, my computer just activated.
I found this on the web.
Hang on.
Check it out.
Stop. Okay. Yeah. And so anyway, speech synthesis, when I said that word, it recognized it as speech recognition, and then it came back to me and talked back to me. Okay, so that's speech synthesis. So VoiceOver is speech synthesis. Siri has speech synthesis. Siri also has speech recognition. So just kind of, the more you learn these terms and master these VoiceOver gestures, you really can do, like I said, anything. It's amazing. But that's the biggest problem we see when people are using their devices. They haven't learned the gestures. there's, like I said, there's all these different gestures. And if you master them, you can do so much. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to leave, Matt. Just let me know if there's anything else you need me to cover later. Okay.
Thank you very much. All right.
Okay.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right. Excellent. Excellent. And folks, it is, excuse me, it is my plan to actually let you go a few minutes early today, since this is day one and all we're doing is fundamentals. But I do want to give the floor to trainer Sarah for a few minutes also and see if there's anything else that she wants to add. But before I do that, I just want to finish up kind of where we were. And we're, typically we'll go a lot of days. They'll probably be 2-hour sessions and we'll end at 4 Eastern. Sometimes they'll end at 3:30 Eastern, as with today. And every once in a while it might have to even go 3 or 4 minutes past 4 o'clock, but you can leave if you need to. But typically we're going to end between 3:30 and 4. Today it'll be on the earlier side of that. Wednesday we're really going to hit the ground running. We've done all the introductions today, gotten all the pomp and circumstance out of the way. And Wednesday we are going to hit the ground running, talking about iCloud and Apple IDs, talking about Face ID, the components of the home screen, the app icons, the Magic Tap, the rotor. I mean, we've just got a jam-packed schedule on Wednesday, but it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Praise God. But for today, I just want to finish up with these one finger, if you, we demonstrated swiping and we told you about tapping and double tapping. I didn't actually demonstrate a double tap, but I mean, it's, this is what it sounds like. If I touch messages, which was what I was demonstrating.
Mode, dock, messages, 2 unread messages. Double tap to open.
And so if I double tap, one finger, very quick, tap, tap.
Messages, edit, button.
That's what we hear then. It opens up messages. Now, a swipe gesture is, how do I want to say this? It literally is like the words swipe and flick are interchangeable, in spite of what some people have told you or might tell you in the future. They really are interchangeable, swipe and flick. But it is like a flicking gesture. Like, you don't rest your finger on the screen first and then swipe. It has to all kind of be in one quick motion. Like if you said, oh, there's a crumb on the table, you're not going to lay your finger down on that crumb and then try to move it. You're going to find you're just going to just real quick, just lay the finger down and swipe all in one fluid motion. And that the reason that's so important with the iPhone and these Apple devices is because if I don't do that, if I lay my finger down, now what I've done is I've brought focus to the icon that I laid my finger down on rather than swiping. So let me show you. Like this is what it should sound like. If I want to, well, no, this is what it sounds like if I just lay my finger down.
Store, home.
See,
mail,
I'm laying my finger down,
emails,
or you might even hear,
cam, nude, TV.
right? Because we don't know what we're doing. Okay, we're swiping all around. But if I want to swipe correctly, just move as I'm laying my finger down to the right.
Podcasts. Double tap to open.
To the left.
TV. Double tap to open.
When you need to double tap, then, here's another really cool thing. Remember that I said you're moving the VoiceOver cursor around on the screen, and that when you touch or when you swipe, you are actually moving the VoiceOver cursor to an element of the screen. You're highlighting that element. Once the VoiceOver cursor has highlighted an element, you can double tap anywhere on the screen. It is not important that you keep your finger in precisely the same place when you double tap. It doesn't even matter. In fact, there are even some folks who double tap by tapping once with each hand, because they maybe are, they're dealing with some dexterity issues that prevent them from being able to really tap quickly enough with one hand twice. So instead, they'll tap maybe once with the left thumb and once with the right thumb real fast. So you can even do that. The position on the screen does not matter. Once you've highlighted an item, you can double tap anywhere on that screen. You just have to make sure you don't lay your finger down first before you start tapping, because then it changes where the focus is on the screen. So that's a double tap. That's a single tap. That's a swipe. Left and right. All swipes are left and right for today. We'll learn what up and down swipes do on Wednesday probably, but for today, all swipes are going to be left and right. And then if we want to go back home, once we've opened something, we can press a home button if we have one. But if we don't, we need to learn one more gesture today. It's a swipe up from the bottom of the screen. If you have sight and you're not using VoiceOver, it's just a quick swipe up from the bottom. With VoiceOver, you have to add a little rest at the bottom of the screen first so that you know you're swiping up from the right place. At the very, very bottom edge of the display is a little place you can't see. And you lay your finger down there, and VoiceOver makes a little sound that I like to call a blip sound, because it really does. It just sounds like boop, just a real short little boop. And I'm going to let you hear it. Hopefully you'll hear it. I don't know whether it'll come through on Zoom real well, but that's what you're looking for. Just this little boop sound when I lay my finger down at the bottom. Here we go. Let's see if you can hear this. Did you hear it? And actually, as soon as it happened, I moved my finger a little and I activated the time. But let's try that again. Every time that happens, I guess maybe I'm trying to not make it happen.
3:20.
I can mute my speech.
Speech off.
Now you won't hear it. Okay, you heard two things still, though. You heard the boop, and then you heard a little click because the focus moved. But just that first part. Okay, now my phone went to sleep. There we go. Okay, so once you hear that blip sound, you're just going to keep your finger held down and slide up until you hear a second blip sound. It's a slightly higher pitch. Let's see if we can hear that. I got speech muted, so you should be able to hear it. Okay, two little blips. And when you reach that second blip, you know you've gone home.
Speech on.
So let's go into an app real quick.
TV, Pod, Health, Home, Wallet.
Just swiping.
Settings.
Double tap.
Double tap. Settings.
Okay, I'm now in settings. You can see
Control Center. General. Screen time.
all these different things. If I want to go home, I just swipe, lay my finger down at the bottom edge, one finger, swipe up to the second little blip sound. There was a little blip. That time you were able to hear it without it doing anything. All right, this time we'll do it. Lay it down and swipe it up. There we go.
Settings.
One more time.
Settings.
Back into settings again.
Settings.
And same thing here. There we go. And that's what it sounds like to go home. So if you don't have a home button, that's how you do it. Now, there are other sort of rest and swipe gestures that we will learn about on Wednesday. But for now, that's the only one you're going to need today, because that is your go home gesture. And we really do want to know how to go home from an app that we open. And the last thing I'd like to point out today is just to reiterate what Rita already said about the VoiceOver practice. You can double tap with 4 fingers to turn on the VoiceOver help mode or practice mode, one of those. Basically, they're the same thing. And then you can double tap with 4 fingers again to turn it off. While it's on, all of the gestures you do will not affect your phone at all, but VoiceOver will read to you what they are. So you can try taps, double taps, triple taps, and swipes with multiple fingers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and see what they do. And VoiceOver will announce what they do. And so you can play with that for Wednesday. Now, as I said, I'd like to see if Sarah has anything she'd like to add to our conversation today.
I mean, both you and Rita have done everything and very well. But there's one thing, though, that I have noticed that most of my friends with vision do. And like if they're trying to turn off my VoiceOver, they've got my phone or whatever, they don't get they instead of tap, 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 they do tap, tap. That's 2 single taps. And what you need to do is you need to tap, tap. If you're doing a double tap with your one finger, you need to do it like it's got to be in the same, it's like the same word almost. Not 2 words in the sentence, but it's like tap, tap. So when you're doing your exploration on VoiceOver gestures and how many fingers, et cetera, when you're doing that, just keep practicing, because for some reason it's a difficult concept. It's a language. It's sort of like SOS. It's like if you do the wrong signals, one, they're too long or too short, you're going to be saying something different. So that's all. I'm just saying that the practice is where it's at. and then your brain doesn't have to be at, you may be thinking, those of you who are beginners, you may be thinking that's too much, but it's not too much because you do one thing at a time and go slowly.
Exactly.
And learn, like Matt is saying, we're just doing, one finger tap, one finger double tap, just slow down. That's all. Not slow down on the double taps.
Information. That's right. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your help. I really think that we're going to stop there for today. I think it's a good place to stop, and I think it's a good place to start on Wednesday, because now we at least have enough information. We can get into apps if we want to play, if we want to practice and try these things out. And then on Wednesday, as I said, we plan to hit the ground running with lots of content to cover on Wednesday. So I on Wednesday, we'll start doing, questions and stuff as well. I do want to tell you how to get help if you need it. If you are a Premier Protection customer, of course, you can iMessage us and you can call us for support and all those kinds of things. But there is an email address for everybody. Even if you're not a Premier Support customer, there's an email address and there is a phone number. The phone number, is mainly used to get more information about our services and so on, but we do have both of those available. They're both available from the website. So the best place to start is ttjtech.biz. I am going to give our phone number and our email address now, in case anybody's taking notes and you are writing this down. Our email address is info@ttjtech.biz. So info, info@ttjtech, Tango Juliet, and then TECH.biz, Bravo Indigo Zulu, info@ttjtech.biz. We also have support at the same domain, support@ttjtech.biz. That's support@ttjtech.biz. You can email us really simple support questions, even if you're not a paying customer, and we will do our very best to answer them as quickly as we possibly can. I do get literally hundreds of emails every single day, so please be patient. We always tell people that God and then our families will always come first. You guys are important too, but we may be, it may be a day or two. All right. Don't get mad at us. Just give us some time and we will get back to you. And if you need to, give us a friendly reminder. Hey, I did email you earlier this week and, just wanted to check in. So that's fine. But just know we will get to you a couple of days maybe, but we'll get there as quickly as we can. And we do have a phone number, and I'll say it twice, 814-348-1366. That's 814-348-1366. Between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern. If you don't get us then or at any other time, you can leave a message. And again, we'll get back to you just as soon as we can. So this has been a great start for things, I think. Praise God. I think we're doing really, really well here. I'm very excited about this. I'm looking forward to everything that's coming up in the coming weeks. I want to again thank Trainer Sarah very much. Of course, Rita and Cliff as well, though they're not here at the moment, but I am very grateful to them as well. So thank you all, and God bless you. And what I want to say is we'll be back here at the same time on Wednesday at 2 p.m. We do have our help session tomorrow at 2 p.m. for those who are planning to come to that. You can get the details about that on the free resources, under the free resources section on our website at ttjtech.biz. It is in Zoom, but it's a different join link from what we did today. So thank you very much, everybody. We will see you next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.